In this Challenger jungle guide, I will see if we can get 70% KP, 7 CS a minute, over 10 kills, and not die in Korean Challenger. You see, a lot of jungling games are lost even if you have, 20 kills, because you end up having 3-4 crucial deaths that will simply negate your lead. So in this new series, to become a better jungler, I will illustrate crucial points about jungling that give you an actionable tip. So for this video, I listed at the beginning, make sure you are not dying, make sure you are having high kill participation while farming as much as possible. But in order to do that, you need to make sure you are recording your own POV so that you can track your camera movements and see how you're actually playing. In order to do that, Outplayed has you covered. Outplayed automatically records kills, assists, deaths, and other important moments, so you don't lose things like Baron steals, and this can be the best way to keep track of your progress from patch to patch, as of course Riot's replay system leaves much to be desired. It takes less than a minute to set up your settings for League, from highlights to a full session, share your highlights easily via Discord, YouTube, or anywhere else, but for the montage enjoyers amongst you, the video editor is easy to use and primed for your hashtag short creation. Click the link in the description below to download Outplayed for free to ensure you can capture every game-winning play you make. Now, I do understand I haven't streamed in a while, and I do kind of want to get back into it. It's just tough to find a window with all the content I'm producing, but someone basically said in one of the streams when I asked what's the most important thing about jungling, they said, never die. That wasn't the answer I was looking for, but I took that seriously, and so this challenge video has been created as, of course, you are watching the first clears. And the idea here isn't to be overly safe to play for KDA, no. The goal here, my friends, is to simply make sure that every decision we take makes sense within the context of the game. And if you make the right decisions, with a little bit of luck, you will very easily be able to not die or have very few impactful deaths within a game. The goal though is to balance your farming and CSing such that you can get 70% plus and 7 CS per minute plus. Now, as both junglers do the clinical and very exciting full clear with nothing else happening, I could have easily chosen a game where there was first bloods, a lot of early skirmishing early, and then the jungler just runs away with it, and it's very easy to not die when you have such a big lead, which is what happens usually with Nidalee players in this MMR range, Challenger. So as Viego finishes his Krugs, instead of moving into the lane for a counter gank or potentially to try get the crab, he knows that his 6 camp is way slower than a Lilia. So what he's gonna do here, or not way slower, but it is slower. So what he's gonna do is move around the long way, hit the plant to see if she's taking it or not. Get that visual confirmed, which of course he does. Now you can flex. Do I have prior to gank mid lane or to move around the back of mid lane? You decide. If you can gank it, gank it. Do be aware that the Lilia will rotate, but otherwise she might simply gank the top lane or reset and head to the bottom lane. So we secure the bottom crab. Have a look to see if we can gank bottom lane, because clearly Lilia has not ganked top lane, which means she has reset and will now look to go straight to the bottom lane for the bottom lane crab, as well as some ganking fistings. The reason I've chosen this is because a lot of junglers struggle with decision paralysis in these particular situations, not from having too many choices, which is of course another end of the spectrum, but from not being aware of the decisions that they can actually make. So in this situation, could I wait? Could I try something? Is the wave good? No. So normally you could reset, but why? We're full HP, we've got resources, we've got smite, we've got a second rotation coming up. Let's just simply say, you know what, nothing panned out early. I can easily do a second sequence here, no stress. And if Lilia does commit to the bottom lane gank with her mid laner, which of course, as you are seeing on your screen, does happen. Remember to use the outside in rule. Remember to use the whole principle of equal and opposite. If they're gonna do that, I know that her full sequence will be about the same as mine, and therefore, Gromp and Wolves will be available to me, or more specifically, Wolves than Gromp. What you do here is severely compromise the farming jungler because there's not much for them to reset on. They have had success in the bottom lane, they can't gank mid lane. Now there's nothing for them to take in the top lane, and that's not really quite diveable just yet. It is a Graves vs Lucian top lane. So while Luciano is gonna handle his wave and his business, you know that Lilia is gonna look to counter jungle your Krugs, but by doing this very important move, what you've done is opened up the map for the possibility for some free ganks, for some free kills. So out of base, we simply take the RNG scuttle, if it's there or not doesn't really matter, and then we gank bottom lane. We will be level 6. It is a free double kill for Viego, and now you can fall back to your blue side quadrant and carry on sequencing upside. The benefit here is while Lilia did a whole top lane and now head straight to the bottom lane after doing her Krugs, or even before doing her Krugs, she is now permanently trailing us and will not be able to match us whatsoever in terms of tempo because we are just about a quadrant ahead of her. And as you can see, any jungler can do this provided you can do a full clear to a reasonable degree. Or you wanted to have high KP with a lot of kills, remember to reactively path to situations that give you free kills, like this on the mid lane. Very important while you're full clearing to watch mid lane. Yes, we don't really play around mid lane anymore like that, but we all need our coffee from A to B, and mid lane is just simply the midway point from our starting point to the destination. Now, once you've done that, pay attention to where the Lilia shows and what she does. In this case, she shows bot lane, has great success, and now you can basically say, no, I'm not going to do my red side here. I'm not going to counter jungle her blue side. Free Herald. And now a lot of you are saying, yeah, but what about the 7 CS per minute? Well, you know what? You're going to go up and down in the early game. It's not really about that. It's about setting the tone so that you can absolutely amp and escalate that up as the game goes on. Even so, 70 CS, 8 minutes, you guys can do the math. Now, you could in theory stay after doing the Herald, but resetting here to get our Mythic is huge for our itemization spike. We also know that the Lilia is going to be sequencing upside after doing that whole bottom lane nonsense and taking a red, etc. This means we're going to put ourselves in a prime position to control and defend our red side, to look to control and countergate anything Lilia might try to do, and if she doesn't do that, free real estate over any sort of tower platings that we want.
Gods, 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 gods,
Now, the typical Korean thing, and this is something I'm trying to really focus on in coaching for people to work on, is out of base, look to go and do something. If you can gank top lane here, even if Lilia shows up, you guys win this 2v2, right? So make sure you make this play, and if she doesn't show up or she shows on the dragon like she does, free Herald, free escalation of game state, 5 platings for you and your top laner, and then you can use that to move into the enemy blue side, contest, steal, deep ward, and then fall back to your red side accordingly. If you just make this gank and Lilia does show up and you can't use a Herald, again, you can then just fall back to your red side. You're rewarding yourself with camps while maintaining farming cadence, but you're still getting that KP and those kills as they show up. There's no way you don't get 70% KP and 7 CS per minute if you think like this. The benefit, of course, is you're also thinking about your mythic itemization spikes. Even though we don't really like Divine Sunderer overall, it's still good in high elo for the Viego mains that use it. And as you would have seen with this lead, if people do show up, you simply kill them. You have to use your mechanics at some point in this game, and you do have to use your lead to start to push the map. So what Viego does is goes back to base instead of falling back to the red side. Why? Because we know Lilia is gonna respawn, and with nothing on the top side and nothing to do whatsoever, even though she did get the dragon, she's gonna float on down to the bottom side. So what we can do then is spend our cash monies, get a few more itemization power spikes, and instead of doing Krugs all the way down, because that would put us a bit behind what Lilia will want to do, which is of course going mid and bot again, we do red Raptors so that if something does happen, you'll be able to affect it and impact it, and then fall back to your blue side again as a reward. And if nothing does happen, well, then you can sequence your blue side and simply look to make some kind of other action in that situation, because obviously while we took the top lane and the Herald and yada yada, the bottom lane took the bottom lane tower. So a bit of equal and opposite going on there. The difference is you are highly farmed and you are fed where the Lilia is not. Now what happens is, as expected, Zed decides to go hunting for ADCs, as one does. Lilia decides to follow, as a deer should, and both die to the Viego power. Because you're going to spend all of these valuable seconds killing and getting the KP and that KD up, we are losing our CSPM, so we'll fall back to blue, fall back to grub. You could fall back to wolves, but if you do see a play to be made, a cutoff, a pick, an assassination attempt, maybe your team simply has numbers somewhere that you can use to exploit a good 4v3, 3v2, and so on, please rotate and do make said plays. However, please be cautious. You do need a little bit of luck in this game when you play this aggressively all the time, and obviously your itemization will factor into it, but don't bite off more than you can chew. If it looks doomed, leave. If your team overcommits and they're gonna die, leave. There's no reason to go back in when you're 100% going to die and there's going to be no payoff. You can spend the time your team's gray screen farming, pushing waves, catching experience, but at the same time, when you are the main carry on the team, and this is very important for low elo by the way, you need to be present. The Viego is farming outside in so that if something did happen, he could rotate quickly. If you're farming inside out in terms of the mid and the late game, you're moving away from your team in the opposite direction. This means not only will they take a fight and die because that's what they do, you as the most fed member will be far away and won't be able to rotate in the first place. So be very cognizant of where you need to be in terms of impacting fights, but don't overcommit, and don't follow your team unto the mortal hells of doom, and then they realize they left Frodo behind. Nevertheless, we will go back to base righteously, and of course head down to the bottom side, where we can then go ahead and try and secure and fight for a dragon. You know what the best way to get a dragon is and avoid team fighting when you're worried about your team's, competency? Make the pick. If someone's out of position, kill them. However, we are a little bit low. We know Zedmeister is in the area, and he, for all we know, might be Z99. So what we're gonna do is simply say, you know what, have the Krebia, and then I'm gonna go ahead and take the Raptors. Then once your team have all respawned on the map, they've joined you in unison, hooray hurrah, you can go down and do the dragon. The enemy team cannot contest because the set is dead. Well, he was dead, and now he's not on the map and able to impact it, so everyone else is just farming and kind of going, oh well. And obviously you've got Lucian pushing the top lane against the Graves here, and I'm wondering how many times I can say Lucian incorrectly. Right, Lilia does a good job taking that Herald away as an equal and opposite play. I mean, nothing much we can do about it. And typically we wouldn't want to go back to base too often like this, but we are getting itemization spikes, and we know at this point we want to get their Death Stones. We want to use that Hextech Gate and get into their blue side jungle. We want to try and push off and kill the top lane. If you can, you do obviously, but if you can't, move into the top blue side jungle with your team, ping them, tell them let's go, and honestly, if they don't follow you, it doesn't really matter. In lower elo games, everyone's spread out, free kills for you. Take their cams, and obviously don't overcommit. You know, when you see the enemy team trying to shove it up the mid lane against your team using their numbers advantage because you are not there, because Lucian is based and or dead, ensure you use a good angle of attack here. You are a threat, you are fed, you are 703. Don't simply go front to back in the team fights. You want to make sure you are getting good angles of approach so that they have to deal with you. If you're just sitting in the back line in a 5-man ARAM like you would expect to do so even in pro play, I want your stomach to churn. I want you to feel upset and sick about what's happening. Because even though Viego's forced to back out and give up the tower, he does it in such a way that they're consistently thinking about you. And if you're playing Kraken Slave Viego, which most of you should be doing in your elos for solo carry potential, this is what you kind of want to do because you are an assassinator, an assassino if you will. Obviously learn to give things up. You know, the most important thing about not dying is not taking dumb fights. A lot of people would have simply taken that fight even if it was bad. Look at numbers advantage. Do the calculations in your head about who's fed and who you can deal with. If you cannot, fall back, give up what you can give up, catch waves, clear wards, take camps, and again, look at what he does now. Bottom crab is available, floats them down for the flank, doesn't run down mid lane into their faces. Because of this good flank and angle of approach, we kill the Ezreal, their most fed member. Because of this angle of approach, we kill the Sed. I don't know, someone on their team that apparently wants to die a lot. But now they can do nothing about it. You have numbers advantage, you are fed. You simply use whatever you need to get out, obviously. And then now you can fall back to your camps, you can catch side waves, but you didn't die because we were intelligent about our positioning, and we had high KP because we made trigger pull plays when necessary, and we didn't wait for our team to do it. And during the downtime, we farmed our camps and always were in a position to capitalize on the enemy team's mispositioning. If you find yourself on Krugs while things are happening on the other side of the map, that's on you, and you're noticing that Viego does not have that problem. I mean, you can't have high KP if that is a problem. And what have I always told you guys about this point of the game? Push the map. That means get into the territory, get dirty, get frisky, be the driving force of the enemy team's nightmares, mentally and physically. Shatter your laner who's split pushing because you know someone's gonna try and collapse. Use good vision control, take their camps if they're available. As soon as they face check, you kill them. If no one does face check and there's people pushing up the mid lane, flank them, and then kill them. Now obviously the mid lane tower is still up, so what we want to do here is make sure we secure that. Make sure you can make any picks that you can in the situation. Dragon is respawning, however there's a 2-man push on the top wave. I do like to do what the Viego does here and simply float on up, use a transition play, kill them or push them out, doesn't really matter. Take my camps, fall back down for a full sequence. Our team does the dragon, but otherwise we would be there to take it ourselves if they did not. And now what you can do is either go back to base and spend your cash monies, but because we reset quite a lot lately and we do have a very big itemization spike, we can use that valuable extended sequence where we stay out longer than we anticipate to simply make good plays based upon what's happening in the game. And that is, yes, again, use Hextech Gates, but if you don't have them, scan and walk around the wall, you can do this. Set a trap, make a pick, and kill someone else. Always keeping numbers advantage by using good map control to make those picks. It's huge in low elo and in mid elos where you don't want a 5v5 team fight. They can never 5v5 team fight because they never have 5 people up at the same time because of you, the difference maker. And then the same thing happens again. They push mid thinking, let's use our team fighting and our numbers advantage, but you know, Graves is dead. Rotate to this, hopefully your team comes through, but at some point you're gonna have to make giga plays. If you have this high CS and you have this high KD and you are the most juiced fed solo carry member, it is on you to make sure your team fighting is exquisite and you're making the right decisions. Again, you're watching a playthrough, a little bit of luck will be required, but that's only because it's Lilia. Freshly buffed, freshly strong, and very difficult to stick to and chase down. You know, dot damage as well as kind of diseased. And as always, make sure you are doing those calculations based upon your champion knowledge and comfortability where you don't overcommit and die, where you play those mechanics well, and that is a factor in not dying. But when you're not dead, look at how much you can accomplish. If you did die in the first rotation there, you would have been able to make the pick for the second fight. As you're watching now, the Viego's kind of skirting the edges. He doesn't want to go too deep in this next fight because they don't have numbers advantages. He's simply looking to play around the edges, the fringes of the game, and make sure that they are not getting away with anything. If you all die here, they get Baron. So what you can do once you've done that is make sure you farm your camps. What else can we do in this moment with our team, off the field or behind us? Nothing. So now we can farm. We farm during that dead time in the mid to the late game. We farm while we wait for our team to join us. When they do so, if the enemy team has terrible back timing, terrible macro, and terrible positioning, that will be a free Baron for you. If they want to contest and fight, make sure you kill whoever shows up. I don't know why they're showing up and contesting. They never were going to get this. They never were going to win the fight, but that's not your business. Your business is simply sword business, killing them and getting more KP without dying. Don't overcommit here to overpush, but at the same time, don't go back to base if your whole team doesn't need to go back to base. If your whole team is here with good push in all 3 lanes, look for openings to flank and get more kills. You know you've already killed 2, they're out of position, Flank and kill the Ezra, push a tower, get that tower damage down. The only time I would reset here for an itemization spike or at least a purchase is if my whole team was a bit disjointed, like 3 people went back to base and they're gonna have 5 up. You know, don't stay around and die and try and 2v5 push. Just reset with your team, get whatever you can, buy an elixir, and then move together. But because obviously that's not the case here, we can stick around, push the waves with Baron, get a couple more kills, and close out the game. And not dying at this stage as Viego is pretty straightforward because you have such a big lead. The goal always is to make sure you have as big a lead as possible when you get to these late game phases so that you can really control teamfights without much risk. The rest of the game though, it's really a calculation factor of you knowing your champion, looking at numbers advantages, looking at what you have to give up, and sort of just preserving the lead that you've gained through intelligent jungling. And obviously if you balance your farming and your ganking like I showed you, easy, 70% KP, 7 CS per minute, 0 deaths, 18 kills, match history in the description, and that's all you need to know. If you want to know the best mental tips for you to get through solo queue and thrive, click the link in the top right box. If you simply want to understand raw jungling principles about how to maximize your success, click the link in the bottom left for the most important jungle rule you've never heard of.
Gods, 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 gods.